Well, for more on this, Michael Arnold joins us now. He's a researcher over at our research center. Michael, good to have you back on set because we were together in the first couple hours after this tragic attack in Christchurch. But the country's Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, has been praised for her handling of the situation. From the very beginning, she came out and said that we're going to have to review our gun laws. They need to be tougher. And we know that she's just recently come out and said that they expect tougher laws to be proposed, and the details of that was likely to come out in the next 10 days. But overhauling the country's gun laws and terrorism laws alone is not going to stop these type of terror attacks, is it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think this is obviously, no one's going to deny this is a good first step. To be able to come out and say you're going to change the gun laws, within 24 hours of the attack is unprecedented in many ways. Of course, there's other positive rhetoric from the Prime Minister saying that, we can't allow the spaces for this type of hateful rhetoric to exist, whether on social media, etc. At the same time, I think, this leads us again into these deeper questions about where this type of rhetoric emerges from in the first place and how it has been allowed to rise up to certain levels in New Zealand, in Australia in particular, where of course the alleged shooter is from. So no, I mean, changing the gun laws is one sort of bandage solution to maybe prevent something like this from happening immediately in the near future.
You talked about hateful rhetoric. What was interesting to me was in the immediate aftermath, we had an Australian senator come out blaming Muslim immigration for the shootings, and despite calls from a majority of the world leaders to sort of to come together and to unite against this type of hateful acts, many people are out there, like the Senator Fraser Anning. It's actually alarming.
Yeah, it's very alarming, and if we're going to speak quite frankly about this, the rhetoric of Senator Anning and others, in some ways it's good that it's out there because it allows us a more honest lens onto what's really going on. Whenever we have events like this, world leaders, of course, will come out and they will condemn the situation, which of course is a good thing. We need them to do that. At the same time, there's a tendency in the aftermath to really sort of take focus away from perhaps their complicity, perhaps the institutional complicity in this type of rhetoric, whether it be from politicians. We see very openly in Australia. We've seen openly in the past in the UK from former Foreign Minister Boris Johnson, for example, and other places as well. We've seen it from media in New Zealand. We've seen it from media in Australia. And of course, this goes back to September 11th, but in many ways it goes beyond that as too. I think, and these conversations are starting to be had, which is good, is the fact that places like Australia and New Zealand, their roots ultimately lie in the dispossession of indigenous people, and they're rooted in white settler colonialism, and this cannot be divorced from the type of rhetoric we see today. It's not a one-to-one correlation for sure, but we can't divorce it. When we see in places like Australia, migrants being forced to stay on islands, which by all human rights organizations are in deplorable conditions, et cetera, et cetera.
But this is such a complex case, and the investigation is still going on. We were reporting here at TRT World that the alleged attacker, Breton Tarrant, was actually listening to ultra-Serb music, and he actually had sort of some very ethnic undertones, not only in his manifesto, but also with the music that he was listening to, the messages that were actually painted onto the assault rifle. So this is actually, it's a much broader picture here.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a very good point, is that this type of rhetoric, we want to say, or these type of movements have spread, and they go beyond, of course, Australia and New Zealand to the United States these days out in the mainstream. A lot of these type of figures have openly praised Donald Trump. When we have the former head of the Ku Klux Klan in the United States openly praising Donald Trump. Obviously, we see this in places like France, across Europe. We see it today in the Balkans as well, with the revival of Serb nationalist rhetoric. But they share a lot in common in terms of their particular focus directed towards Muslim migrants out of sort of the whole lot.
Michael, this is a fascinating topic, and I've always enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for coming on set for your analysis. I appreciate it.